And so we are in Texas. We're in Houston, Texas, and we're going to talk about non-invasive, hands-free body contouring. In the modern world of body contouring, there are a number of criteria I think you need to see in any system. Number one, it's got to be affordable, which means no disposable. Number two, it's got to be predictable. It's got to do three things, and you can titrate which three. It's got to build up muscle. It's got to kill fat. It's got to tighten skin simultaneously. And if we look at the functional device of the Evolve X, this is the Transform applicator. It's about the size of the palm of your hand. You get 6 of them. So you can treat the abdomen and the hips usually at the same time, or a big abdomen, or by doing 3 and 3 big hips. It's the same concept of all things InMode, contact impedance controlled RF. And so the central electrodes are positively charged. They flow to the 3 electrodes on the side, negative electrodes. 1 million cycles per second, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, creating kinetic energy, which creates heat. Now that heat, when sitting on the skin, needs to be controlled. So inside this relatively thick applicator is a contact sensor, impedance, and temperature sensor. 1,000 times a second. It's measuring the 1 million times a second. And it will cut off the skin 1,000 times a second. So once you get your endpoint for skin, which is 43 degrees, on, off, 1,000 times a second, so it never gets to 44, 45. You never get the ow, you don't get the burn. But what happens to RF, it starts to penetrate a little deeper, hits the FSN, starts to go up and down the FSN. The fat is trapped in those fat lobules within the FSN, and it heats the fat up slowly because there's no sensor cutting off the fat. Why does it get into the fat? It's big. RF penetrates half the distance between the electrodes. The Forma is tiny. The Evoke and the new Define is tiny. This is wide, so it gets into the fat. Thank God there's no fat sensor. The temperature allows to rise, usually 2 degrees hotter than the skin. So while the skin is cut off at 43, the fat down here gets to 45. How long do we treat for? 45 minutes. Skin at 43, fat at 45. Now, just to be sure, every 2 seconds, bipolar RF is turned off. In that 2 seconds, this is turned off, and you get DC current flowing from one side to the other.